Jamestown was the first permanent English settlement in North America. Its importance to our nation is unlike any other historical site I can think of. The colony's founding established a British presence on North America for years and years to come, heavily influencing the future of the continent and early America. The settlement, with a charter from the Virginia Company, was founded on May 13, 1607, on the coast of Virginia by 104 men and boys. In these maps, you can see where Jamestown is located on a map of the United States, and more specifically, on a map of Virginia. Women would later settle in order to marry and create families. And within a month of founding Jamestown, the settlers established a fort and were protected from attacks by the local Powhatan Indians. In this map, you can see the territory of the Powhatan Indians, also known as the Algonquins. During the winter of 1609 to 1610, the settlement entered a period called the Starving Time. The settlers ran low on food and supplies and turned to leather from shoes and belts, and sometimes even ate other settlers to survive. By the end of the Starving Time, around 85% of the population of Jamestown had died, almost putting an end to the settlement. In spring 1610, settlers who had been shipwrecked in Bermuda finally made it to Jamestown. They discovered the settlement in disarray, but upon deciding to abandon it, they received news of a new fleet. The new fleet would bring the new governor, and the settlers returned to Jamestown. In this image, you can see where Bermuda is in relation to Virginia. It's a little further south than the Jamestown settlement is. After a few years, Jamestown had become a profitable business venture. A new strain of tobacco was introduced, enabling it to become the cash crop. In 1619, the first recorded instance of Africans being captured to work in the fields was made. This could be seen as the beginning of the slave trade between Africa, North America, and Europe, despite the fact they were treated more as indentured servants. In this painting by Sidney King, he depicts the first arrival of Africans in Virginia. Later in that year, around 90 women were shipped into the settlement in order to help establish a more permanent colony. In May of 1624, the charter from the Virginia Company was revoked and Jamestown became a royal colony. These two images on the left is an image of the charter, and the right is the crest of the Virginia Company. The settlement saw many changes and endured hardships, like rebellion, complicated relationships with Native Americans, taxes, and more. In 1699, the government and capital were moved to Williamsburg. Although people still lived there, it was no longer a town. In this map, you can see the historical triangle of Virginia. This includes Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. The colonists at Jamestown established what life would be like in the United States from then until now. They established the idea of private property in North America, held the first legislative assembly in the town church, and were in a way a melting pot. Much of the United States is today. This is because of the mix of Europeans, Africans, and natives, all interacting in one way or another. The fact that Jamestown was a British colony had a massive impact on our culture today. We speak the English language, when we could potentially be speaking French, Spanish, or Dutch. And our early government was helped form by the British government. Our desires to have freedom of speech, representation in our government, and more niche things like making the quartering of soldiers illegal, all stem from the British colonies that hold their roots in Jamestown. In this image here on the left, you can see the claims that European nations made and their colonies in the Americas. Had the British not successfully established a colony in Jamestown, the second option was somewhere in South America that was more hospitable. This could have completely switched cultures, and ways of life if we had lived in South America. The Jamestown colony also introduced slavery to North America, and in turn, centuries of oppression, slavery, and segregation for minorities in the colonies and the United States. Violence between the Powhatans and settlers began a cycle that would last centuries, forcing Native Americans off their land, starting wars, and killing millions. Jamestown, as the first permanent English settlement in North America, profoundly shaped the course of our nation's history. From its founding in 1607, Jamestown's influence on early America and the continent as a whole cannot be overstated. Through success and hardships, it established a British presence in the continent, introduced slavery, and much more. Jamestown's effect on American culture is extremely visible to this day, and Jamestown holds a legacy unlike any other.